All right, so in this last little bonus video, I'm not going to go super deep into a lot of this stuff because a lot of it touches on things we've already talked about, but I just wanted to kind of polish things up and tighten up the presentation a little bit. So I went onto the marketplace and I basically got a nicer level. This one's called Meadow Environment. For me, I think it was, at some point I had gotten it for free. I think I talked about in an earlier video that one of the nice things about the marketplace is there's free stuff every month, and if you just kind of make a habit of going there, you'll have quite a nice library of stuff over time. So I opened up this level and I changed the game mode to third person game mode in the world settings, and then I just plopped in a player start because it didn't have one. So this is going to be like where we spawn, essentially. And so, we could move this over here and let's get it out of the ground like that. And then I also went through each of the animations and kind of went through and refined those. So I brought them into Maya. I cleaned up the fingers, cleaned up some of the retargeting messes that came from the retargeting, and just found some better animations. So basically what I have now is, this is the idol I had before, but the hands are just nice and cleaned up. I added a sword. We'll go through how to do that. That's pretty quick and easy. There's a new run animation. This is from the Paragon Aurora character. And then there's a sprint animation. That's from another animation pack, but it actually blends really nicely. To do both of those, aside from just the cleanup, I also had to adjust the max walk speed. So in the blend space, you'll see that I went from, I think this was 230 and 400 to now, or 230 and 5 to 400, and this actually should be, I think that should be 6, but I'll leave it at 5 because I think it actually looked pretty good. And then I also needed to go into the blueprint and make sure that I changed the max walk speed on here. So let's see, max walk. So now that's 400. And then over on the shift, when we hit shift and we sprint, it now goes up to that. So those two things had happened for that to work. Jump is a whole new set of retargeted animations that have been cleaned up. So those are looking much better. And then I also added, very similar to what we did on Sprint. So with Sprint, I added a new input, and then I went ahead and assigned that input to a button. I did the same thing here so that I could have like an emote. And this is from Paragon Aurora. So she has like a little slice move and, come here kind of gesture. Yeah, so I feel like that's actually pretty good. We have a nice little environment to run around in, and we could pick any environment. I put a bunch in this project that I could try out. I kind of like the simplicity of the meadow. And let me go over the sword real quick. So the sword came from this Infinity Blade weapons pack, which is a free pack. So there's blade, swords, and this one was called Hero Sword 11. And all I did was go into the third person blueprint, and I added a new scale mesh component. So if you actually have the sword selected, so if I select the scale mesh and I go up here to add, you'll see that skeletal mesh component will automatically populate with that. So I added that, and then I just dragged it underneath the character mesh. And then I was able to set the parent socket to the hand, which gets it nicely attached to the hand bone. And then I just did some small translation adjustments to get it better into the palm. And that's pretty much it for the sword. It doesn't need any animations or anything like that. And it just kind of does, whatever the hand's doing. Now, the downside to this is that it's always going to be in her hand in this case. If we wanted to ever have it go out of her hand, we would need to do some custom work there. But, oh, hey, I crashed. That's cool. Let's go ahead and restart. You can see here, this was cleaning up the slice animation. I just brought the FBX in and cleaned up the finger pose, and that's pretty much it on most of these. The fingers just didn't retarget well because of the retarget pose for the knight character already had like a bend in the fingers, and all the other characters had them mostly straight. So any rotations that were on those fingers from the animations kind of created a double rotated effect. So what I would do is back in Maya, I could just kind of come in here and fix this up. Let's find an animation that actually could use a bit of fixing. That was the slice emote that I had. Let's see here. Idle noise A. Oh yeah, that's pretty good and busted. So let's do that one. So what you need to do here is right click on the asset, go to Asset Actions and Export. Export it wherever you'd like, and then the only thing you want to check here to make sure is just Export Preview Mesh. That will actually give you the model with the animation, which can be useful when you're trying to just edit stuff. So in a new scene, I'm just going to import that FBX in. Where'd it go? There we go. And you'll see that we get the model. So what I would do here is, because I have auto key off, I can select the mesh and go to bind pose. And then I can select the joints that I want to zero out their rotations and go. And on this one, I'm going to do the twist too, because I think this animation was an old retarget where I actually had all the twist mapped to like a clavicle. So they're kind of busted. So I'm going to go ahead and select all the twist bones and then go up to the animation graph editor and just delete all those keys. And the reason that I set the mesh in bind pose instead of just zeroing out the joints is because in Maya we have joint orients, but in Unreal we do not. So everything we export from Unreal actually has the joint orient baked into the rotations and the translations. But you see that that fixes up the fingers pretty easily. Then I can just kind of come in here and repose them to be like a little bit better of a grip on the sword. And yeah, that's pretty much all I would do. Some of those I did a little bit more, but that was kind of the gist of it. This one I would probably do a lot more if I wanted to use this animation on the fingers themselves, because she was the character was doing like finger animation, which I do not have right now, but I'm just using this as an example. So let's go ahead and re-export this. Actually, let me check and make sure the frame range was correct, because I had bake animation turned on. Okay, cool. So now all we need to do is go back into the engine, right click and re-import, and it's going to prompt us to find the file to import, and then we just select our exported file. And let's open it up and see, and there you go. Fingers are all fixed. So that's pretty much all I would have to do on the animations that I cleaned up. There was a couple, like the jump, where I made sure it like went back to the idle pose and things like that. Like put a little bit more effort into them, but for most of them I could just do this. And because we stripped out the twist bone animation, we can actually add that back in through the Anim blueprint by just setting up some nodes in here. Let me comment this real quick. So that's the belt dynamics that we set up in a previous video. And then in here, I'm trying to remember what this thing's called. I think it's like apply a percentage of rotation. There it is. So what this will allow us to do is specify a source bone and a target bone, an axis, and how much of the rotation we want to apply, which is essentially all a twist setup tends to do. So we can find our upper arm twist 01 for our target. Our source is the upper arm L. Rotation axis is X, and then the multiplier, I'm actually going to uncheck exposes pin, and I'm just going to set it to -0.9, which means it's going to cancel out 90% of the rotate X on the upper arm. This animation doesn't really show a lot of twisting, so let me get that idle noise A animation in here, which says it's an additive. Let me see if that's actually an additive. There it is. And yep, it is an additive. So I'll just make sure it's actually an additive of the right thing, and then we'll go back to the blueprints and I'll just apply that additive on here. Oh, that's right, it's this one. So apply additive, and then I'll just drag that noise A idle animation on top. So now we can see the twisting happening, and you can see the upper arm on the left is countering that rotation of the twist. It's, you know, because right there it was twisting quite a bit before, and now it's actually countering that. So essentially we can just do this for the other upper arm twist, except we'll change the multiplier to something lower, like, I don't know, 0.55 or something. And then for the lower arm twist, we're not countering rotation, we're actually adding rotation in. So we would do lower arm twist follows the hand, and we could do something like, we'll start with 0.75 and see how that looks. And then lower arm twist 2, same deal, but we'll just change the multiplier to something smaller. So I'll just try 0.45. And then let's set this up for the right arm. So we'll just swap all the source and target joints to the right arm counterparts. Oh yeah, I forgot to do the upper arm itself, so let's switch that over. Oops. And last but not least, we'll get this one done. Cool. So now all we need to do is compile and just take a look and see. Looks like the lower arm might be twisting a tad too much, but otherwise it's looking okay. So we can just adjust some things here. We can adjust, like, if we wanted to just quickly see like what 50% of that rotation would look like, we could just set the alpha to 0.5, which just means we're going to get 50% of that. And we could also try adjusting the multipliers as well until we get a value that we're kind of happy with. So 0.25 maybe instead. Okay, I think that's looking good. And then the other thing you'll notice is that is additive is a checkbox on here. So if that's checked, then this rotation will be applied additively to whatever is already on those bones. But since it's not checked, it should just be straight up overwriting the rotation on those bones, meaning that if we already had twist animation, this would stop that and just replace it with what it's doing. So now we can see how our animations are looking. Ooh, full screen is like having a struggle. There we go. I actually really do like the lighting in here. I feel like it looks pretty good. Probably because it's using like Lumen, and some of these older marketplace assets are not using that stuff. But yeah, so that's the twist. We could also do that for the legs, but I actually don't think the legs had any issues. I think they have all the twist data, so they're good. And yeah, so I put some other levels in here. Like I have these Infinity Blade grasslands and icelands. So we could always just try out different environments too, to capture, you know, footage for. And all you got to do is go to world settings and switch your game mode override to BP third person character. And that's it. And then you can, oh, looks like it's compiling shaders and the shadow's freaking out. This is a really old level. I feel like this is like 2012 to 2014, somewhere in that range. It's old. But yeah, we can run around this level and take footage here if we wanted to. That shadow is following her. Oh, that's right. I think there's a point light in the character blueprint, and I can just turn the shadows off on that because, yeah, that looks kind of weird. So, yeah, I think in here, there it is. Just turn off cast shadows, and that way we can still kind of illuminate the character when they're in dark areas, but not have that strange shadow casting. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There were some things I didn't get to go over on this particular character just because I never needed to do those things like pose drivers. So in the future, if I get to do a character that needs a pose driver, I'll try to upload like a supplemental video on that. But otherwise, I think this is good to go. Be cool to do some more facial stuff at some point. I didn't really bother with that on this particular one, so it does look kind of dead in the face. But that wasn't the point of this particular series. So I hope that was informational. I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks so much, and take care.